Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a video and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Today, I'm honored and privileged to welcome a friend, a very well known and experienced engineer, and a fellow board member of the YPO EIS, Andy Chen from Taiwan. Andy, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much, Ashtosh. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you. Andy is the founding managing partner of Reds Capital. He is the president and CEO of Catronic Enterprise. He's the president of IEEE Technology and Engineering Management Society, and he's the former CTO of Canada's largest electricity generator. So, Andy, what would you say are three key milestones in your life or your career?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess we can start when I was really young. When I was young, I was diagnosed with scoliosis, and it required some back surgeries. And the surgery, I was in Taiwan, and surgery didn't go that well first time. Then, fortunately enough, I was able to go to the States around age of 12. So I changed my complete environment at the age of 12. And after surgery, I decided to stay in North America. My parents decided to let me stay in America. So it's a big change in my life to go from one environment to the other at the age of 12, 13. And there was a lot of things that I learned quickly to adapt to the environment. And then the next things comes around is when I finished my universities. Actually, my high school, Fresno University in Southern California. Then my parents asked me to join them in Canada. So I flew out to Canada, and that's where I think started my different aspect of a country cultures. And that I also adopt quite a bit. And fortunate enough, I decided to stay in Canada for most of my life. And when I graduated from University of Waterloo in engineering, it was a great opportunity that I got into 9 job offers. And as well, I get to pick almost the top company that I could work with.
Sure.
I was going to work with a medium-sized computer manufacturing company in Boston. But at the end, I ended up working for the power company because of some of the complications in the immigration, working visas, all that stuff in interstate. So yeah, and I was really fortunate to have a really lasting careers with one biggest company in Canada and moving from different roles. Throughout the 30-year careers, I moved about 6 promotions to go from the junior engineers to the CTO, which is only reporting to the president. So that was kind of my quick journey career-wise. I'm sure I can tell you a lot more about the other changing.
Oh, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. Thank you. That's amazing milestones. So let's talk about your 3-decade career with Canada's largest electricity generator. This is OPG, right?
Right. It's called Ontario Power Generation. Yeah. And as I indicated to you that I started there as I finished my university. We started with junior engineering and training. So you kind of there's about 150 of us they hire at one time.
Wow.
And then we all put through training school for 2 years before you get placed permanently into an organization. Mind you, the Ontario Hydro at the time, it's an integrated utility, which means that it has generations, it has transmissions, and it also has what we call the power market, the energy market. So it's kind of all combined into one.
Okay.
So so the company at one point has about 20,000 employees. So 15 people, 150, and mostly engineers for power company because of the electricities. So that's when I started and going through my careers and the company went through quite a bit of evolution like every other major company. It's a crown corporation, so it tied to the government. Every 4 years, we have elections on the premier.
Okay.
Once election comes in, the new management comes in, and the new infrastructure comes in. So almost every 4 years and 30 years of my career there is a transition, and so I learned to how to cope and take advantage of those transitions.
Mhm.
Sure enough, the the 6 or 7 times of transitions,
Mhm.
every single time I got a promotion.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
so
So
change is good.
did you happen to know the new premier every time?
No, no, actually, I have a secret. I have a secret that I have to share with you.
Okay.
So my seventh my actually the seventh transition was the retirement, and that's the best transition of all, right?
I agree with you. I agree. I mean, we all look forward to the stage where we say, okay, we've given back enough. Now it's time for me, and myself. And I'm at the same stage myself now. And
Exactly,
I'm at a
exactly.
fantastic stage.
And you know what the funny thing was, uh, I was um, I was a CTO for the power generation company.
Mhm.
It went through a what I could call they call it decentralized or privatizations.
Mhm.
So it sells out arms of their power to different company. So
Mhm.
it divided into a generations, transmissions, and energy markets. So it turns out three entity, and Ontario Power Generation is the biggest one, which generate all the power, right?
Mhm.
So we retain about 12,000 employees
Wow.
at that point, right?
And at what stage did OPG get into nuclear power?
Well, OPG started nuclear power in 1970
Okay.
when the power starts out. I think the construction, the engineering design, it probably I would say started 60
Okay.
or maybe even early 60s. The first reactors in place is about 1972,
Okay.
71, 72.
And what percentage of OPG would we say nuclear?
Okay, so they're they're about at one point. Now they changed a bit now, but
Mhm.
let's say 10 years ago, when I was in charge of the power grid generations,
Mhm.
there is almost equally one third, one third, one third.
Oh. Mhm.
Okay, now the one third is hydro.
Mhm.
In Canada, we have in Ontario we have a huge lake
Correct.
called Lake Ontario,
Yeah.
big body of waters, and we have the biggest waterfalls,
Mhm.
Niagara Falls.
I know.
So we have plenty of power generations around us, sustaining us,
Mhm.
and then 30% would be burning coal or thermal generations, we call them,
Okay.
and they come from burning coal, burning oil, or burning
Mhm.
gas, right?
Mhm.
So, and then the last 33% is nuclear.
Okay.
We have three large nuclear plants located strategically along the lake
Mhm.
in Ontario.
Wow. That's amazing. And the whole world is now talking about reducing dependence on nuclear. What is your view of nuclear energy in the world?
It depends on who you talk to.
Okay. Okay.
Now, it's a very political decisions.
I know.
It's very, very political decisions. It's not so much of a scientific decision or economic decision.
Mhm.
It's a political decision.
Okay.
It's a great political tool to get vote,
Right.
right? And if you can read the will of the people,
Mhm.
you can use nuclear power to get elected
Mhm.
as an issue. So I need to pick issues. So like there are many countries who's reducing their nuclear dependencies, power
Mhm.
generation. Germany is one of them, uh, but and there's a company that expanding like crazy.
Mhm.
China is one of them.
Mhm.
So it end up a lot of German technology then got transferred to China.
Okay.
They actually almost got it for free. It's amazing, amazing.
Mhm.
So as a result, I end up with a lot of consulting contract with China government
Mhm.
that's expanding. In Europe, I think I would say France is the most nuclear friendly
Mhm.
of all the nations in France,
Okay. Okay.
and they are one of the manufacturers, and the major force is Russia as well. Russia has generating nuclear,
Fantastic.
so I wouldn't not say uh, dependency on nuclear is being reduced.
Mhm.
I think it it is shifting. People are shifting towards environmental impact, looking for things that will save, things that are sustainable for the futures, right? And that's when all the intellectual argument comes in, which is more safe, which is more sustainable, which is, technology wise.
So again, just continuing, I'm enjoying my conversation about based on your incredible knowledge of energy. Uh, what is your view on the renewable sources like solar and wind, I guess,
Yeah, okay. Well, actually, there's solar and wind and tidal wave, right?
and
I
tidal
know
wave?
if you,
Okay,
yeah, tidal wave it's a huge merge because it's the natural power
okay,
that actually could move things, right? That amazing power, like wind,
right.
it able to turn, right? So harnessing the tidal wave, so let me break down a little bit for you.
Hmm.
Um, the the bottom line, the most critical issues for power, renewable power at this point, the
Hmm.
technologies
Hmm.
is the what I call the reliability.
Okay.
Okay, what happened is that it's great we could have a great solar source
Hmm.
power. If there's no sun, there's no power.
Correct.
Same thing with the wind.
Hmm.
Same thing with tidal wave. It's very much uh, environmental dependent.
Hmm.
You cannot control it.
Right.
You cannot say so. I need more power now.
Hmm.
You cannot do any more power now. So what end up doing many countries doing is that for every kilowatt of your renewable energies,
Hmm.
you have another kilowatt of backup.
I see.
And guess where the backup power come from?
Hmm.
So economically, it's going to be quite a bit of challenge
Hmm.
to reduce the power at the price.
Okay.
Even though if you say, with the technology, I can reduce it by 10, 20%.
Hmm.
If you need the redundancies, you have to pay another, 80, 90%.
Hmm.
So it is not a straight answer. So if I think we're all looking for the magical silver bullet,
Hmm.
but I don't think it's coming anytime soon.
True.
Now, one of the things that could really help out a lot of power generation issues
Hmm.
is the storage issues,
Okay.
right? I mean, to be honest with you, in Ontario, we generate so much power that we waste it. We don't use it in the peak time.
Hmm.
We actually have to offload the energies, shut down the power plant because there's too much energy produced, not enough demand, but there's no place to store it.
Hmm.
But when you need the energy, the peak time, well, you don't have enough
Hmm.
and you cannot supply anymore. So that really, if you would have a storage device where you can reserve the
Hmm.
power
Hmm.
and then supply it when you need it, that is a huge, 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 huge benefit to it.
And I understand there's a lot of research going on storage of power, and that the quality has improved very significantly.
Yeah, in the recent year, it has, it does has some, but it hasn't been commercially available,
Hmm.
large scale. It has still in the very infancies as
Hmm.
far as I'm concerned to get to the power storage that we're talking about,
Hmm.
right? What we're talking about is powering thousands and thousands of houses,
Hmm.
right? It's not like so there need to be a different strategies
Sure.
of how that's going to work, right?
Yeah. So tell me, before I'm going to move to Red's Capital in 1 minute, but can you
It's
tell me,
okay.
there's a lot of discussion that and a lot of papers I've read where they say that by 2030, 2035, the cost of power will become zero because there'll be so much available. I just wanted to get
Well,
your perception.
it um, I think it's more a wish than it is a reality.
Okay.
The cost of power, even if the cost of power is zero,
Mhm.
the human cost is not zero.
Mhm.
Our nuclear our electricity cost, the actual cost of producing the fuel, buying the fuel,
Mhm.
is peanuts
Mhm.
compared to the management you put it in the nuclear plant, the management, the resources, and the maintenance, those are what driving up the cost.
Okay.
Now, if you look at just the core sales, say, okay, well, it's going to be zero. Well, that's fine. Even if you give it out for free, zero, you still have to manage. You still have to deploy. And all that transmission isn't going to be free. To get to your house is going to be free unless you happen to grow to your house.
Okay. So now let's move on. We've spent almost 15 minutes talking about power, and I think it's been
I
fun.
love this topic because you cannot live without water and power,
I
right?
agree.
That's and the impact is tremendous. If you look at what happened in Texas just recently,
Yeah.
and if you look at what that is, it gives you a different perspective.
Well, I
And
was caught several years ago in a high-rise building in Manhattan when there was this big power grid failure. And I remember walking down some 45 or 46 floors because I had to rush to JFK to catch a flight and my flight was canceled. So I know what lack of power can do.
well,
So,
I should tell you this. This is interesting. Now you talked about it. I have a condos in downtown Toronto, and that's the tallest condos in
yeah,
Toronto.
yeah,
And I don't own the whole thing. I own a piece of
yeah,
condo
yeah.
there,
Uh,
but it's a taller. It's a 78 stories,
mm,
uh, and it's the tallest one. So I'm on the board of directors for the whole condos,
mhm.
and the biggest issue we have is elevators.
Wow.
I tell you, when it goes out, it's 78 floors come down, it goes up. So, yeah, I totally sympathize your pain.
Amazing. So, what I'm just thinking, let's continue our conversation on energy today,
Sure,
and we'll
I'm
talk
happy
about
with
other
that.
subjects maybe some other time. So,
Sure.
tell me now, I see a big disparity in energy in the developed world and the developing world, right?
Absolutely,
Now,
absolutely. You're
how
right.
can this imbalance be corrected? I mean, like you were saying, you had surplus power and you were shutting down power plants in Canada. Is there any technology available where you could possibly send the surplus power to South America, which may have a shortage of, I mean, I know you can't send it to Asia, where we have a lot big shortage.
Well, that's one strategy.
Uh-huh.
The other strategy is how do you have them self-sustain,
Mm.
not rely on others,
Correct.
right? Um, so, sure enough, I got involved a lot in IEEE foundations. IEEE Foundation is exactly doing what you're talking about. We have
Uh-huh.
what called the smart villages.
Okay.
Now, the smart villages is different project we do in a different part of the world,
Mhm.
India included,
Mhm.
developing countries, to help them uh, generate sustained electricity.
Mhm.
And more important is the educations and entrepreneurship part.
Okay.
And I'm actually on the board of IEEE Smart Villages,
Mhm.
and the project that we have is very interesting. What
Okay.
we've done to bring power to the places where there's no power,
Mhm.
to actually educate the people, and then to actually give them some motivations
Mhm.
and to light up their villages, to light up their home, their
Mhm.
educations. It's very rewarding, and I think that is the movement that I really encourage, and that's one of the things that I'm involved in IEEE and the TAMS. And I think it is really to do what you just said, because I'm really passionate about having equal accessibility, both in the power and in the connectivity, empowering the people to be able to do transactions, to have the younger people in the less privileged area to have equal opportunities. I think those are huge, important cause
Mhm.
that we need to solve. We need to work on it.
So, for example, our Prime Minister in India has set a target of 800 G, gigawatts, I think,
Gigawatt,
of
yeah.
solar power by
Hmm.
2025 or 2020, 30, I think. And I think India is already making 400 gigawatts.
Right,
And what has happened is that the power price of solar has come down to less than 3 cents per unit.
right.
Uh, what do you think is going to be the impact of such cheap solar power on the other kind of power, which is much more expensive?
Well, you know that solar power is not, it's really is, you're looking at the cost,
Uh-huh.
short-term cost, but you also have to look at the long-term cost as well, right? Solar power is the most demanding on the real estate.
Okay.
You use a lot of real estate to generate very small proportional.
Sure.
I can power almost 1 gigawatt,
Mm.
which is the whole city of Toronto and neighbor Toronto,
Mm.
with one plant, which is one small area
Yeah.
with a nuclear plant. To do the equivalent things, you
Mm.
probably have to cover 1,000 sometimes wide size
Wow.
in order for it to cover that. So there is an environmental impact as well, because
Mm.
wherever you solar plant, you can grow anything,
Correct.
right? Because it's going to cover up. It's a huge area, and the great places is desert. Maybe and the impact of that I don't know, but then there is an impact. I wouldn't say it's free for that, but you're robbing on the environment to some extent.
Very interesting. So now I'm going to move to the last segment of our conversation, Andy, on some questions for you personally. I know
Sure,
that I had wanted to talk to you about Reds Capital and Catronic, but I think we'll do that in another episode.
sure.
So my question to you, which are some questions for you personally, is that, Andy, as you look back at life, a very, very successful career, doing some amazing things now, so well networked. From where you are today, what does success mean to Andy?
Oh, to me, success means happiness.
Okay.
Uh, Happiness, uh, uh, feeling relaxed,
Hmm.
feeling happy, feeling positive, good around you, around the world, and the people you touch. That's my
Right.
happiness.
And a follow-up question from that is who or what inspires you?
Well, there, if I look at my life, I
Hmm.
think I can pinpoint about 3 or 4 pivotal point,
Hmm.
and those pivotal point is really happen with somebody open up my door, open up my mind. Somebody kind of uh, open up a different doors and letting me realizing what is possible,
Hmm.
what's out there, right? So, I mean, at the very young age when I came to Canada, United States, I met this fellow, a good friend of mine, a scholar, and he opens up my mind a lot, and I start doing all the writing.
Hmm.
I actually write a Chinese article, which I don't even know how to write now,
Right.
but it changed my life about intellectually,
Mm.
about thinking differently, philosophies, and with there's some people I met who opened up so much opportunity for me,
Mm.
and it really expanded my reach and my potentials. So that those are the key people that I think in my life, and I can count less than a handful of them.
Fantastic. My last question now for you, Andy, and this is for the thousands of people who will watch our conversation. You reached right to the top in a Canadian big organization. What would your advice be to a young individual starting off on her or his career in the corporate world?
Well, the I think the most important thing that I find in anything I do, including corporate world, is the people.
Hmm.
I think treating people, respecting people the same way that you do to people you work for,
Hmm.
the people you work with, and the people you work for you.
Hmm.
That's the most important thing in your daily life.
Hmm.
And in my mind, I have a model that I want to make sure, and this is somebody taught me, one of my mentors told me,
Hmm.
every time I spend time with you, with somebody, I want that person to be better off after the sessions. They either learn something, or they feel better, or they're feeling more energetic,
Hmm.
or they are lifting up their spirit. I think that's the only thing to strive for. So if I meet with you, I'll never split apart angry or upset, all things, but trying to do, but you can do it every time.
Mhm.
But my motto is leave them a better place before the time they spend with you. And they would want to spend more time with you.
Mm.
If you make them better every time, more people want to spend time with you.
Oh, amazing. Andy, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. I've enjoyed the incredible amount of learning I've had on energy from you today. And
Anytime.
I'm sorry we're not able to cover the other subjects, but we will cover them again. But
Sure.
thank you again.
Thanks, Asash. This is very enjoyable, and I really enjoy that. And thanks for your patience, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.